All right, we're getting right into tonight's 2 cents. There's some other things going on in the sports world today. I apologize, but this is the talking point of the day, the week, the month, maybe the year, all of that. The Grizzlies have traded a 26-year-old borderline all-star who is also one of the most popular players in franchise history. I've got a lot of thoughts about it. Wrote them all down right here. Let's get into it. Number one, I do not know how many national media members need to hear this. Let me say this loud and clear for you all. The Grizzlies are not rebuilding. I know it's a natural instinct whenever a small market team trades one of their better players to assume they're blowing it all up. All you're doing by suggesting that could be what their plan is exposing you actually don't pay much attention to the Memphis Grizzlies. A reminder, the whole point of a rebuild is to find good young players to build your team around. In case those national pundits don't know, the Grizzlies have not one, but two good, young, proven players to build around. Their names, if you haven't heard of them, are Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., both 26 years old at the start of next season, maybe not even in their primes yet. Anyone who's been around this team knows there's nothing about the way they're operating to suggest a rebuild is coming. On to the next point. Why make this trade if you're the Grizzlies? I think this haul was simply too good to turn down for your third best player. 4 first-round picks, a pick swap, and 2 usable players is a lot. Getting all of that and getting out of Bane's contract gives the Grizzlies a lot of flexibility they didn't previously have to improve the roster. Which leads to this. There is another shoe to drop here. Bank on it. I'm not going to bring out the greatest hits from Grizzlies Trade Machine Twitter, but I can assure you Zach Kleiman is not as excited about the Orlando draft picks in 2028 and 2030 as he is finding out ways to maximize the roster around Ja and Tripp. I think those moves will represent a different way of team building for the Grizzlies. We all know about it. The new CBA makes it harder than ever to maintain a core of players that's expensive. There may not be a scarier 2 words to an NBA GM right now than second apron. Because once you spend a certain amount of money, you are really restricted in how you can build your team. And even before that, we have seen the optimal build for a team shift in the last couple of years anyways. Big threes were all the rage in the 2010s, but the last couple of champions, the Celtics last year, the Nuggets the year before that, the Warriors in 2022, for sure, they had high-end star power, but those teams also had the requisite depth to win it all. I think there's a model for how the Grizzlies can rebrand themselves that's still playing. For the last few years, whenever the Grizzlies and Thunder have matched up, the discussion was always which big three was better, Ja, Jaren, and Dez, or SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. Well, one, we got the answer to that question. But I actually think moving forward, Memphis might look a lot more like the Indiana Pacers. They don't have a big three, but they do have a star point guard who's the engine of the offense, a really good two-way big man, and a whole bunch of complementary pieces that either shoot, play defense, or do both. I don't think it's crazy to think that Ja can do what Tyrese Haliburton is doing for Indiana in the right environment. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Pascal Siakam are different players, but I probably would have said Tripp was better than Siakam before this playoff run. Now can the Grizzlies find their versions of Aaron Nesmith, Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard? TBD, but good news, I do think a couple of those guys could be on the roster already. I also think this is a big vote of confidence in both Ja and Thomas Isolo that they don't need a third star offensive player to run a good offense. If Isolo is a hit and can build a good system around Ja, think about what Rick Carlisle is doing with Haliburton, I think it's a pretty reasonable bet. Where they will undoubtedly look to upgrade is on the defensive end, because I don't think there was ever going to be a world where a Ja-Bane backcourt was a plus defensively. Not for lack of effort, it's just a small duo, is what it is. The Grizzlies can now play KCP at the 2, a proven commodity as a perimeter defender, or they could slide Jalen Wells there where he feels more natural and get a bigger player at small forward. So I laid out why I absolutely get why the Grizzlies pulled the trigger on this deal. I also totally understand why the Magic wanted to do this. They were the worst three-point shooting team in the league last year. There were times when they went cold, they couldn't hit the ocean if they were standing in a boat. Bane is one of the truly elite shooters in the league. He will make that offense more dynamic right away. They also have an elite defender alongside him in the backcourt in Jalen Suggs that'll help cover up any of Bane's shortcomings on that end. The thing that likely swings how successful the deal is for Orlando: how much point guard will Bane have to play? he could do it, but as we saw here a lot the last 2 years, it's a bit of an up and down experience. If Suggs can handle those responsibilities, it doesn't matter, no problem. If Bane has to do it a lot, though, it will be interesting. Let me plant a few flags here. I do not think the Grizzlies make that pick at 16 in this year's draft. I think the only pick they acquire they may be tempted to hold on to for a bit is the 2026 pick, which could very well be in the lottery. The Kleiman has said he is not trying to make the team younger. I think he uses this year's pick to acquire a win-now player. On that same note, I don't think Cole Anthony is on this roster come opening night. Too much overlap with Scottie Pippen Jr., who is both better and cheaper. Anthony is also better than a third-string point guard, which is what he'd be in Memphis. I would bet he gets traded this summer, too. I do think KCP will be on the team, and he is the exact kind of player the Grizzlies needed. Good defender, a vet with championship experience, and a dog. Didn't shoot well in his 1 year in Orlando, just 34% from three. Much better after the All-Star break, though. 44% from distance in 24 games. It's only 32. I don't think he's washed. I think it's a good bet by the Grizzlies to bank on the shooting bouncing back the first half this year being an outlier. To wrap this up, it's going to be tough to fully evaluate this deal until we see what comes next. Looks like a good trade for the Grizzlies in the moment. That will only be true if they turn those assets into assets that help the team take the playoff leap that they have not been able to in the last 2 years. Finally, just want to give a big shout out to Desmond Bane, a 30th overall pick who in just 5 seasons leads Memphis almost without a doubt as one of the 10 best players in franchise history. Great player, loved Memphis, first-class human all the way, and because of all that, was beloved by the fans. Best of luck to him in Orlando. The whole 901 will be rooting for him from afar. Meanwhile, you saw our play of the week earlier on Action News 5. We'll have it for you coming up next.